Nothing could have prepared me for the story I'm about to share with you. I have read and researched many disturbing cases, but this one broke me. The story of Elisabeth Fritzl is not just a crime story. It's pure horror. It's the kind of story that makes you question humanity, and even though it's hard to tell, I feel it's my duty to speak for her, to make sure we never forget what happened to her. Let me take you back to August 1984. Elisabeth Fritzl was only 18 years old. She lived in a town called Amsterdam in Austria with her family. Her father, Josef Fritzl, was a strict and controlling man, but no one could have imagined what he was really capable of. Josef Fritzl was a man the world could later call a monster. Long before his hidden crimes came to light, there were already signs. In his younger years, he raped a 24-year-old woman at knife points in 1967, an act that led to a brief prison sentence. Despite the severity of the crime, he served only 12 months before walking free. He married a woman named Rosemary, and together they had 7 children, 3 sons and 4 daughters. Josef was abusive, both controlling and cruel. His temper ruled the household. While all the children suffered, Elisabeth, his daughter, was often singled out. She was brave, outspoken, and refused to cower like the rest. And for that, she paid the highest price. He began molesting Elisabeth when she was just 11 years old. When Elisabeth Fritzl first ran away from home at age 16, it was because she was desperate to escape her father's physical and emotional abuse. However, she was eventually found by the police just a few weeks later. Because she was still a minor, the authorities returned her to her family, unaware of what was really happening inside the home. After returning home, Elisabeth tried to move on with her life. She trained as a waitress and was eventually offered a job in Leeds, a nearby city in Austria. This opportunity gave her hope for independence and a life away from Josef's control. But Josef had no intention of letting her go. Fearing he would lose total control over her, he decided to act on a plan he had been secretly working on for years, trapping her in the hidden cellar. For the past 6 years, Josef had been secretly building something beneath their home, a so-called nuclear fallout shelter. It was underground, hidden, and engineered with chilling precision. It was August 26, 1984. Elisabeth was 18 years old. Her father, Josef Fritzl, asked her to come help him in the basement. He said he needed help fixing a door for the shelter he had been building. She followed him downstairs, thinking it was just a normal day. She helped him hold the door. She helped him hit the frame. Then suddenly, he slammed the heavy door shut right on her face. Before she could scream, he pressed a cloth over her mouth. It smelled strange, she felt dizzy, and she passed out. When she woke up, everything was dark. She was in a small cold room. The door was locked tight. She screamed, she cried, but nobody heard her. She was trapped in a secret soundproof basement he had built himself under their home, and her nightmare had just begun. The roof he imprisoned her in was small, cold, and built behind a hidden entrance. It had a secure keypad. Only Josef knew the code. To reach that final door, you had to pass through 8 different locked doors in a maze-like pattern he had constructed over years. When Elisabeth's disappearance was reported, Josef told the police a heartbreaking lie, that she had joined the cult. To support this, he forced her to write a letter claiming she left willingly and she didn't want to be found. The authorities believed him and the case was closed. What no one knew was beneath their very fate, Elisabeth was still alive, trapped in darkness. From the very next day after locking Elisabeth away, Josef began visiting her daily. He brought her food and then he raped her. Not once, sometimes twice, sometimes even more. Every single day. It was relentless. And after 5 agonizing years in that prison, Elisabeth started having babies. When she gave birth, she had no doctors, no nurses, no pain relief, just a book on childbirth from the 1960s, a scissors, and a few disinfectants Josef had provided. She bled, she screamed, and survived, over and over again. The fear was unimaginable, but those tiny cries in the dark gave her something she hadn't felt in years. Purpose, a reason to live. Over time, she gave birth to 7 children, all fathered by Josef. One of the twins, a fragile newborn, struggled to breathe after birth. With no medical care and no help, the baby died in Elisabeth's arm. Josef coldly took the body and cremated it in an oven without a single thought. Of the surviving children, Josef took 3 of them to live upstairs with his unsuspecting wife, Rosemary, and the rest of the family. He left each infant on the doorstep, accompanied by letters he forced Elisabeth to write. Letters that claimed she couldn't care for the babies and was leaving them for her parents. Each time, social services were alerted. He convinced the authorities that Elisabeth had joined the court and was simply abandoning her children. No questions were asked. No one looked deeper. And so, Elisabeth remained below, in that cramped, damp prison, raising 3 children in the shadows, without sunlight, without space, and without hope. Meanwhile, the outside world kept knocking. A social worker showed concern when a second baby appeared. Then a strange call came to Rosemary. Someone claiming to be Elisabeth apologizing for dropping off the baby. But Rosemary knew something was off. The voice sounded recorded, and more chilling, they had just changed their phone number, and no one was supposed to know it. Still, nothing happened. Josef remained in control, retreating into the basement every day at 9 a.m. under the excuse that he was working on blueprints for machines. No one was allowed to disturb him. Tenants who lived just above the cellar heard strange noises at night. Dogs could bark and sniff at the floor. Sometimes, they saw Josef hauling bags of groceries, furniture, even appliances into the basement. But it never seemed like enough to raise alarm. When questioned, Josef always brushed it off. Just pipes, their house settling. Sometimes, he even spent entire days and nights in the cellar, claiming to be on business trips. And all this time, Elisabeth, locked away, abused, and broken, did something extraordinary. She became a mother. She taught her children how to read and write, using books she begged Josef to bring. She created routines. She tried to give them normalcy, love, and education in a world with no sky. When the truth finally came out, even hardened detectives and journalists were in awe of how strong and nurturing Elisabeth had been. Despite her hellish reality, she protected her children with everything she had. For 24 years, Josef Fritzl ruled the basement like a god, with fear, threats, and cruelty. He warned Elisabeth and the children never to touch the cellar door. He said it was rigged with electricity, and if they ever tried to escape, the room could be filled with deadly gas. It was all a lie, but the fear was real. Whenever they disobeyed, Josef could cut off the electricity, plunging them into darkness, and starve them of food and water. After years of confinement, the turning point finally came. Christine, Elisabeth's daughter, collapsed, unconscious and barely clinging to life. Her condition was severe. Josef had no choice. So he let Elisabeth carry Christine upstairs, her first glimpse of the outside world in 24 years. But as soon as Christine was in the car, he locked Elisabeth back in the basement. At the hospital, doctors were shocked. Christine's skin was pale as death, so white, so thin. You could see her veins. Her teeth were rotten. She looked translucent, like she had never seen sunlight. When the doctors searched for her name, there was no record. No school, no birth certificate. She simply didn't exist. Her condition was critical. Kidney failure, vitamin D deficiency, and more. She needed her mother, but Josef dodged every question. His lies weren't working anymore, so the authorities were alerted. The case, once closed, was reopened. The police made a public plea, asking for the mother to come forward for her daughter's survival. Under mounting pressure and Elisabeth's begging, Josef allowed her to visit the hospital, but with strict instructions to stick to the fabricated court story or face consequences. He let the other 2 children go upstairs temporarily, so no one could suspect. But the moment they stepped inside the hospital, it was over. Police detained them immediately and separated them. Then they started questioning Elisabeth. She was quiet at first, avoided eye contact. She looked terrified. At first, they thought she was an abuser, but then they noticed her skin was just like Christian's. Her hair was white, her eyes hollow. Every one of Elisabeth's teeth had rotten from her mouth. She didn't speak until she made one request. Promise me I will never have to see my father again. And with that promise, she told them everything. She described 24 years of rape, abuse, humiliation, and degradation. Even in front of her children, she described the prison, the fear, the hopelessness. Her words poured out across 11 hours of testimony. Even the judges couldn't bear it. They watched her confession in 2 hours intervals, unable to take it all at once. Immediately, police stormed the Fritzl home and demanded Josef hand over the passcode of the electric locks. He was arrested. DNA tests confirmed what Elisabeth had said. All 6 surviving children were his, and yet, Josef defended himself. He claimed he planned to rescue Elisabeth the next year because he was getting too old to care for his second family. He said he planned to tell everyone he had rescued her from a cult. He even told the investigators coldly, "I was born to rape. I could have behaved a lot worse than locking up my daughter." Later, police discovered that Josef himself had been abused by his mother, beaten until he bled, locked up. But what he did in return was even more chilling. He reportedly locked his own mother in an attic for years, faking her death until she actually died. Investigators now believe Josef may have held his mother captive for nearly 20 years. In the end, Josef was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 15 years. He did not appeal, and to this day, he has shown no remorse. Elisabeth, who was now 42 years old, finally came face to face with her abuser in court. It was the first time she had seen him since being freed. She stared him down. He couldn't even meet her eyes. They were later moved to a secret location with full security, a new home far away from the town, surrounded by guards. They live under new identities to protect their privacy. Elisabeth started therapy and slowly began to build a new life with her children, but the trauma runs deep. She never got to live a normal life. She missed out on everything: school, friends, love, freedom. Her children grew up not knowing what normal even means. And me, I'm still here, still broken after reading all this. I can't stop thinking about it. How could a father do this to his own daughter? How could a man live upstairs with his wife and grandchildren while holding his daughter and kids underground? This case messed me up. I feel sick reading the files. Angry, scared, hopeless, but also deeply, deeply sad. Elisabeth is one of the strongest human beings I have ever read about. I didn't know how she survived. I didn't know how she kept her mind sane. How did she raise the kids in such a horrible place? How did she stay human in a place that was meant to break her? And she still had the strength to fight for freedom. She is not just a survivor, she is a miracle. Elisabeth, if you ever hear this, I believe in you, I honor you, and I will never forget your story. To every other woman still going through this, and to those who have found the courage to leave, I see you. I stand with you. To everyone suffering in silence, fighting daily battles no one sees, please don't give up. Your voice matters. Your pain is real. You are not alone. And to those who are willing to help, be the light, be the safe space, be the one who listens and believes. Together we break the silence. Together we heal. Now I ask, do you believe people like this still exist? They don't wear a warning sign. They walk among us. They can be your father, your husband, your boyfriend, your brother, your son, your uncle, your cousin, even the most respected man in your community, your pastor, your teacher, your neighbor. The calmest, kindest man you think you know. The one you trust with your daughter or live alone with your little sister. The one who plays with your son. The one you never question until it's too late. Evil don't always look like evil. Sometimes it looks like love. You see the signs, but you ignore them. You brush them off because facing the truth feels so uncomfortable. Because you don't want to risk your reputation, your relationship, or your perfect image of someone. But you know what? Silence protects the abuser, not the victim. Speak up, even if your voice shakes. Protect the innocent, not your pride. Pay close attention. Listen with your eyes, not your ears. When a child goes quiet, when they stop speaking or acting like themselves, it could be their only way of crying out for help. And when they finally find the courage to speak, please do not dismiss it. Don't say you're making it up or don't talk like that. Believe them, protect them. Ask gentle questions, look for signs, keep evidence quietly. Act like that shield because you might be the only one standing between them and a lifetime of pain. And remember, boys get abused too, not just girls. Don't let silence be the reason a child keeps suffering. The world is not safe. This is True Crime Tales. If this story touched you, please like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more raw, real, and deeply moving stories like this. And remember, sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones inside our homes.